Welcome to TOMMO'S Race CHINWAG, your favourite Formula 1 podcast produced by a British biased bloke with a massive Swede full of very questionable wheel knowledge. Broadcast live on YouTube and after the fact on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We have a good old natter about each and every Grand Prix of the season. My name's Tommo, let's talk about it. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Let's talk about the 2025 Belgian Grand Prix, shall we? An exhilarating event, an incredible top tier sprint weekend, one to remember that will live long in your memories. That, of course, is not true. This Belgium sprint race thing was always a bit sus in my mind. What has Austria done to lose its sprint and Belgium to gain? Austria is a perfect sprint weekend format. I was always concerned going into the longest track on the calendar, only 15 laps for the sprint race, only 44 for the main race. And it honked. But you dedicated individuals, whoever you are, wherever you are in the world, welcome to everyone in the live chat. Tina, Zany, Formula Info, Doha, Suyan, NK McFrin, GTS RV, Big Stern, Becky, Henry, Marlene, Noah, Cardboard, Joseph, and the rest of you, however you are choosing to consume this lovely live stream podcast that I have changed the latency a bit, slightly lower image quality to try and prevent drops and lag and stuff. If lag happens, I do apologise. Give it a refresh. That should fix it. We'll crack on, okay? Let's assume, let's hope, let's pray, let's keep our fingers crossed that we won't have too many issues with this one. Welcome, everyone. Let's talk about Belgique, shall we? A long weekend, and we've got plenty to get on to. Even though it was a bit dull, there's a lot to talk about. So let's get straight into it, starting with the sprint. Can you please let me know? I already have a poll going in the live chat for your race rating out of 10 on the Sunday, but rough idea, sprint race rating out of 10? Maybe an 8, maybe a 9. You know what? I'm not even going to waste your time by teasing you about a race rating for the sprint, because that sprint was terrible. It was a 2 out of 10, if you ask me. Max Verstappen won, which was pretty interesting, for want of a better term. Put it P2 in sprint qualifying, didn't he? Behind Oscar Piastri. Oscar put basically half a second on everyone, which was huge. Big quali lap from Oscar Piastri. Felt in FP1 very comfortable, very quick, and delivered that lap time in sprint qualifying. Other to look at, you got Haas, Ocon, P5, Behrman, P7 in sprint qualifying as well. The Haas boys lined up well. They had a quick car this weekend, did the Haas gents. So did Carlos Sainz as well. And there was a bunch of ranging fortunes here. You look at Behrman, Ocon, Sainz, Hadjar, all in the top 10 in sprint qualifying. Didn't work out so well for them in the race, spoiler alert. And also, why has Liam Lawson got green next to his name? Never mind. Sprint quali wasn't great in terms of... Well, it was. You know what? Qualifying always delivers. Let's be honest, actually. We are in a place where Formula 1 right now, quali is banging week in, week out, but the races are struggling. They are starting to... a regulation change is definitely needed, right? All in all, when we look at them, it's getting good. Why is the regs changing again? There is this inherent problem with open wheel racing, the dirty air that comes with it, the ground effect cars that suck literally to the ground, and when it rains, chuck up a bunch of spray, which again we'll get onto, hence the thumbnail for this video. Is this the end of wet racing? Because we didn't really get as much wet running as I thought we would, and most people thought we would. Not every race should be a banger. Well, not Nicola. I would say not every race realistically will be a banger. We should still be aiming for bangers, of course, right? And Spa's one of those venues. It's going to kind of split opinion in a similar way to Monaco. Because for me, Spa as a racing track, fantastic, unbelievable, great venue, great unique environment, great fan experience, all that. But for specifically the nuances of the formula that is Formula 1 right now, and for quite a while now in F1, doesn't tend to work that well. but we still get banging performances as we saw in the race. That's the wrong overlay. In the sprint result, because Max Verstappen took the win. He passed Oscar down the Kemmel Straight. Not much Oscar could do. Max had that low drag wing on the car, skinny rear wing, plenty of straight line speed, got past Oscar on lap 1, took the opportunity. Oscar was harrying him the entire race, but couldn't pass. Max essentially had, half DRS himself. The McLarens were right with him, particularly Oscar, as Lando got passed by Leclerc, then had to pass him back. And Max got the job done. Didn't make a mistake. Pressure from Oscar throughout the entire sprint race, but Max did not falter. And it is Max's ability to be consistent when the pressure's on and high. And I'm referencing this now because I will be bringing this up later in regards to a different driver. His ability, when it needs to be done, to bang in lap after lap after lap and not make a mistake, whether the pressure's from behind or trying to catch someone ahead. You can rely on Max to be there no matter what, can't you? And he got it done. Laurent Mekies' first win as Red Bull team principal as well. So, pretty cool for him. He had a 100% win record as Red Bull Racing team principal after the sprint. Obviously not after the main race, but spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. You know what happened, obviously. That's why you're here. Yes, so other than that, it broadly stayed the same, didn't it? Didn't really change. Gasly had a car issue. Couldn't even... Well, he did technically start the race like 2 laps down, but wasn't registered as a finisher. Blah, blah, blah. Not much happened. Hamilton couldn't make much progress. He had his spin in qualifying, didn't he? In sprint qualifying, where the rears locked up. Albon had an issue in quali. Engine issue apparently down the straights. There was a few issues knocking about actually this weekend in terms of PUs, in terms of power, which we did speak about this in the pre-race CHINWAG. Spa is one of those tracks where a lot of straight lines, a lot of high, medium speed corners, it pushes the car to the limits, It tests the reliability of your package. And some of them came up short this weekend. But yeah, that was the sprint. Won't spend any more time on that because we've got a really boring race to talk about. But how boring? Okay, let's have a look at the... I've got the poll going. 578 of you have voted. Race rating out of 10. 16% of you have given it a 1 out of 10 for a Grand Prix. I'm surprised there's any of you here. How many? It's called what's the analytics say? 637 of you are here, which is actually quite a bit below average. And honestly, I don't blame you. I don't blame you for not wanting to watch that. I'm going to, every race, banger or clanger, I will be here no matter what. But I understand if you don't fancy this one. All right, I get it. I don't have a problem with that at all. Yeah, that race gave us trauma. Harv, I feel you. I make you right. So yeah, 16% of you gave it a 1 out of 10. 25% of you gave it a 2. 37% of you gave it a 3. So the biggest percent was a 3 out of 10. And then 21% of you gave it a 4 or above. Now bear in mind again, 5 is as bang average as a bang average race gets. It's not good. It's not great. It's not bad. It's not terrible. It's just plumb right in the middle. I mean, it honked. There were a few little interesting bits. Piastri overtaking Norris at the start. Hamilton making his way through. There was enough for me to give it a 3 out of 10. But even then, that's a push. It's probably more like a 2.5. Like, realistically. But, yeah. When the races are boring, the better the weekend. Listen, when the races are boring, Algiz, typically, these streams are even longer. So, lock in, right? Stay hydrated. Lock in. Don't tell Red Bull I'm drinking one of these. And we'll be here for a long time, not a good time. A long time, not a good time. Noel, Tomo, do you think races like today hurt the sport? Look, I think that the problem with F1 is we only have 24 races a year, 24 events a year, of 30 when you include sprints. And that's only 30 opportunities for audiences to watch the sport, right? So each race is 1/30th or 3.3% of the entire season, right? If you're just roughly speaking. Now, if you watch one bad football match, for example, right? Well, you know there's going to be there's hundreds of other ones going on, or even if you just follow like the Premier League, right? You know that there's so many games being played at the same time, right? There's 10 games going on. So if one stinks, there's probably going to be at least one other one that's good. You can enjoy from some point of view. Do I think a race like this hurts the sport? Yes, but not like massively. However, it does bring up the age-old question. And there's a few things we need to talk about this weekend in regards to the track, in regards to how the FIA deals with wet weather running, because it is a very sensitive subject, and I absolutely understand both points of view. And Dijon, as you say, the F2 race was fire, which typically the junior formulas don't have a problem because they're all in equal cars, spec series, and that is always going to be a stick that you can beat F1 with. It's not a spec series. You have that engineering component. The McLarens were on a different planet this weekend, realistically. With their tyre management, it just wasn't even close, really. So, yeah, this is F1. And sometimes you have to... It's up to you as a fan, right? How much of it do you accept that this is what the sport fundamentally is? How much do we push to change certain things and try and encourage the sport? Because the sport makers, Liberty, the people in charge, are going to be pushing for more audience and more entertainment, because that's what fills up your bank account, right? That's what fills up Liberty Media's coffers, is the size of the audience. We as dedicated, hardcore nerds that we are, right? We are a tiny subset of the overall. So, yeah, you have to take all that into account. I very much digress here. I very much digress. Thank you, Sam, for the super chat. My dog Kepler says this is for Minton. Cheers, Tom. Cheers, Kepler. Up the Kepler. Kepler. We in the house. Don't tell Sam I told you. We in the house. Do it right now. We. I'm sorry, Sam. That was a super chat, and I've just told your dog to do a piddle in your house. But I mean, look, if Kepler does it, Kepler's a very well-trained dog. So credit to you, Sam. If Kepler's going to listen to me on the internet, then that you've done a very, very sound job with your dog. But yeah, anyway, this one's going to be a waffly one, isn't it? I can already tell. 3 out of 10. 3 out of 10. So qualifying then. Lando Norris ahead of Oscar Piastri. Bit of a surprise one, that one. I wasn't actually watching qualifying live. I was at a barbecue with my mates. Shout out Sam. Great time. Had fun. And Minton was shattered afterwards as well. Busy. His social battery was drained. But I caught it late. I caught it like in the evening. Tried to avoid spoilers as best I could. Charles Leclerc P3. Superb job. Max Verstappen P4. Just 3 thousandths behind Charles Leclerc. So very, very tight between them. But then again, McLarens were kind of in their own little game, Tom, I'm not getting any more dog owner support. Listen, J Pro, we do it for the content. It's good fun, okay? It's good fun. Alex Albon, P5. Very happy about that. Very unhappy with how it was just kind of brushed over in the coverage. They were too busy showing, Lando and Oscar's just driving around going slowly. Show us Albon. Show us the other cars that are finishing their laps. Like, bro, all right, fine. We know the McLarens are 1-2. Show me Albon getting P5. Come on. And then Russell, Tsunoda, Hadjar, Lawson, they're all very close. Very, P5 to P9 was all very, very, very tight. So, small margins. But Yuki P7, big, huge. Which, I'm not going to take all the credit. But, obviously, me and Yuki, I'm beautiful engineer. If you know, you know. Beautiful engineer. Yuki P7 in qualifying, best qualifying so far as a Oracle Red Bull Racing driver. I don't know. Maybe it was me. Probably. But I'll leave that up to you. Gabriel Bortolao as well. Clutch from Gabby. Love your work. P10 in quali. Then Ocon, Behrman, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Sainz, not happy out in SQ2. Not SQ2, Q2. Just didn't find any pace. Was quicker in Q1 than he was in Q2. So he was a bit perplexed by that. Hamilton as well. Track limits deletion meant he was P16, which is tough. Fine margins, but Oscar got pinged. There's a few this weekend, weren't there? Albon almost went out in Q1, I want to say. Didn't he? Yeah, I'm sure he almost went out in Q1. Yeah, he then ends up P5. Or didn't he almost... Or maybe he almost went out in Q2. I think he almost went out in Q2. I think he was like P10 on the borderline. And then he got P5 in the end. You know? And I think Russell almost went out in Q1 maybe. I just remember this was one of those weekends, right? There was a bunch of drivers who just scraped through like Q1 or Q2, but then positioned really high. And then you've got the Aston Martins bringing up the rear as well. They had a honker. Absolute honker. Tomo single-handedly convinced Red Bull to give Yuki the upgrades. Well, look, they got the floor on his car. They got the floor, the new floor, spec floor on his car, conferred by Laurent Mekies before qualifying. Got it on the car, and he goes P7. So correlation doesn't necessarily equal causation, but you are welcome. Up the Yuki coin. We love to see it. So those are the qualifying results for the Belgian Grand Prix. So what does that do to the quali head-to-heads? Now, I'm not going to show you the second half of the season. You know, we've done 16 now of 30 qualifying sessions. I'm just going to keep the overall for now. But then once we get to the end of the year, we can kind of look at the first half of the season, second half of the season. That'll be an interesting comparison. But I'm just keeping it going for now. It's all in my big spreadsheet. Okay, all in the spreadsheet. And we do have some changes going on. We've got the first flip of drivers for a while now. The smallest gap on average is the Sauber gap. But now it's Bortoleto advantage. Advantage Bortoleto, should I say. By 7 thousandths of a second on average ahead of Nico Hülkenberg. By 7 thousandths, which is basically nothing. But Bortoleto did one over on Nico both quali sessions by, 0.411 in sprint quali and then by 0.371 in normal quali. So Gabby, against a driver who is known explicitly, specifically for qualifying, Gabby's special. Gabriel Bortoleto is special. I think I'm investing. Just like I invested in Yuki early, okay? And maybe Yuki won't come to flourish into the diamond that I believed. But I think Bortoleto could be that guy. I really do. Ocon Behrman, then Albon Sainz, Piastri Norris, Leclerc Hamilton, Hajar Lawson. Gap comes down a little bit. No massive changes in the gaps because, again, these are averages over 16 sessions. So one swing either way isn't going to make a huge difference. There's a few laps, you know, Albon had some engine issues in sprint quali, but it wasn't enough to make the difference between Albon and Sainz in sprint quali was 0.436. Albon did seem to have straight line issues, but I feel like Carlos has been so unlucky at so many times. I am including that gap. You know, Albon went out in SQ1. It is what it is. I'm making my own judgment calls as to whether to include certain times or not. There's always factors. I mean, Behrman was meant to do his lap and Yuki jumped in front of him and he was fuming, understandably so. There's always going to be, you know, context that's, But, yeah, all in all, this is how it's cooking. So I'll let you read it for yourselves. I won't bother. Audio-only listeners, basically it's all the same. It's not changed. Verstappen Sonoda, 0.639. Russell Antonelli, 317. Alonso Stroll, 307. I forget there's audio-only listeners, so I'll go through them all. Gasly Colapinto, 285. Hajar Lawson, 199. Leclerc Hamilton, 180. Piastri Norris, 119. Albon Sainz, 097. Ocon Behrman, 041. And Bortoleto Hülkenberg, 007. 7 thousandths of a second. Those are the gaps. Advantage to the driver on the left. Up the Bortoleto. Love it. Invested literally in Aston. Invested in Yuki Coin, bro. Stop investing. Jordan. You miss 100% of shots you don't take, Jordan. All right? Don't have a pop at me for trying. Okay? This is the game. This is the game that we play. So those are the quali head-to-heads. After 16 to 30 qualifying sessions, boom. Race result. Oscar Piastri wins. comes out on top in the McLaren 1-2, starting P2 is the place to start. As it turns out, we know this around Spa-Francorchamps. Down the Kemmel Straight, you get the move done. Got it done very early. We will get into the details of the move as we go. Charles Leclerc P3, big weekend from Charles. Like, look, we're not onto bangers and clangers yet, but what did Charles do wrong all weekend? I feel like he probably maximised as much as, if not more than anyone else. Big weekend from Charles Leclerc. Held off Max Verstappen, which is not an easy feat, but these are the two who need to have a title fight, man. Leclerc Verstappen would feed families for generations, truly. But never mind. And Harv, maybe I do miss 100% of the shots I take. But what about the ones I don't? I've never missed one of them. I'll tell you that for a fact. George Russell P5, Alex Albon P6, which I'm perfectly content with. Held off Lewis Hamilton, who was putting pressure on him towards the end. Liam Lawson P8. Gabriel Bortoleto P9. And Pierre Gasly somehow in that Baskin-Robbins ice cream van delivers a single point again. Pierre, bro, you are cooking. He is driving exceptionally well this year in a very difficult circumstance, challenging environment, not only for him, but for everyone at Enstone. And credit to him once again. Ollie Behrman, 4 P11s in a row. 4 times the highest position with no points. That's annoying because that doesn't reflect on the Drivers' Championship, but it should reflect on how we are perceiving Ollie, who's driving at a very consistent, good level. Although you got to say, even though Haas got big points in the sprint weekends, in the race, nil points. Ocon P15, Ollie P11. That Haas definitely had the pace for double points. Definitely. Split the strategy, didn't pay off, is what it is. Hulkenberg P12 was looking strong, had to pit a second time late on and lost a lot of his progress. Yuki P13. I think Yuki was unlucky. I honestly, I think Yuki really should have been top 10. There's a lot of drivers, to be fair. Behrman, Hulkenberg, Tsunoda, like Ocon had the pace to be, obviously Antonelli, obviously Sainz. There's a lot of drivers on a different day could have got a top 10 here. Tsunoda's one of them. Pitted too late. Yeah, he said it was a miscommunication with the team. And yeah, that kind of destroyed a lot of drivers' races, actually, just pitting that a little bit too late. Stroll P14. Both the Astons just had a weird race. I don't know. It was just mad. It just doesn't operate in the window around a track like Spa. There's some circuits where the Aston is best of the rest. They are the new Haas. It's Aston Martin. Because Haas are the team we're used to having these big swings from best of the rest to comfortably worse of the rest. That is now Aston Martin. Ocon P15, like I said. Antonelli P16. A weekend to forget for Kimi. And tough viewing, seeing his interviews after, I want to say, qualifying. Because, yeah, bless him. He was really feeling it. And he's a kid at the end of the day. So you can't help but feel for him. Alonso P17, Sainz P18, Colapinto P19, and Isaac Hadjar, car issue in the straight lines meant he was just getting gobbled up. Not good for Isaac. And he was down in P20. Tough weekend for Isaac. Again, a lot of potential, a lot of performance, but wasn't to be. Boom. So driver standings, how does this reflect upon, after 13 of 24 rounds, where Oscar Piastri extends his lead to 16 points at the front over Lando Norris, 266 to 250. Verstappen, 185. He is now 81 points behind Oscar, which is his race number. And he is 65 points behind Lando Norris. It's definitely a McLaren fight for sure. Like the Ferrari looks like now, it definitely in the hands of Charles, and I think eventually in the hands of Lewis. The Ferrari is as quick as Max's Red Bull, because Ferrari have taken a step forward, I think, with the upgrade that they've bought. Charles seemed very happy with it overall. Lewis, more so after the race. He had a good race. He was feeling quite positive after it. And the Mercedes seems to have fallen away a bit. George not too happy. It's been very barren for him as of late. So George Russell, P4, 157. Leclerc, P5, 139. Hamilton, 109. Antonelli, 63. He's been pointless for a while now, hasn't he? Albon, 54. Very, very well received for me, of course, because bit of a barren spell. Obviously, 3 retirements in a row for Alex Albon. Good to see him now. Back-to-back races in the points. Lovely jubbly. Hulkenberg, 37 points. None this weekend. Ocon, 27. Hadjar, 22. Gasly, 20. Stroll, 20. Lawson, 16. Good points for him. In the race, 4 on the board for Liam. Alonso, Sainz, both on 16 as well. Tsunoda on 10. Behrman, 8. Bortoletto scores again to go with remain pointless so far this year. Bosh. And then the team standings, no change in position from last weekend. I know this because, we have a disconnection, which is excellent. And we're back. No clear and obvious reason why that's happened. Turns out that lowering the bit rate and changing the latency has not stopped. Well, I think we're back quite quick. But yeah, give chat a refresh. Apologies for that, everyone. I'm going to be out of this place soon, so hopefully we'll find a way of sorting this out. Red Bull Racing 192, Williams 70 points to Sauber's 43, so a 7-point buffer between Sauber and Williams. Williams needed a bit of a buffer, obviously. Sainz getting points in the sprint and Alex getting points in the race. Much needed for Williams, just to give them a little bit of... Because they are still, on average, the 5th best car. Even though everyone else has improved, I still think Williams just about have it on the rest of the midfield. But just that gap isn't anywhere near as big now. So a 27-point buffer is simply lovely. Sauber 43, Racing Bulls 41, Aston Martin 36, Haas 35, and Alpine in Pizza with 20. Boom. And then F2 and F3, which was kind of chaotic this weekend. To be honest, I didn't really follow the F3 this weekend. I just didn't get around to it. Kind of missed what was going on. F2 was kind of interesting, and I want to kind of focus on this podium of Alex Dunn, Arvid Lindblad, and Roman Stanek, which Alex Dunn got Arvid Lindblad got and Stanek inherited the win, followed by Ritomo Miata for his first podium in F2, and Luke Browning, the Williams Junior. The F3 quali, right? You know what? I've got a little mini story for you, right? So when F3 quali was on, I wasn't watching it. I was watching something else, and I finished watching it, and then I saw it was F3 quali, turned it on, and I see the cars going through Portier, turn 10, right? And I see this just 4 wide and about 200 rows back of F3 cars because none of them want to go ahead to give everyone a slipstream. I saw that, and honestly, I was like, I looked at the screen for about 5 seconds. I was like, nah. I just turned it off. I was like, this is nonsense. This is... Like, do they need like a slipstream car or something? Because this happens far too often around like Monza, Spa. It happens to a degree in F1, but not so much. But in these, and you are asking for a horrific crash. And like, Spa, unfortunately, has a lot of history with horrific crashes. And it's like, bro, I ain't got time for this on a Friday. Because it was on the Friday, wasn't it? So, yeah, it was a technical infringement that caught Lindblad out to do with tyre pressures, I want to say. And then done for like an infringement during the race. But it was mad that because Dunn's disqualification got announced first. So then it was like Lindblad won. And then Lindblad's disqualification got announced. Then Stanek won. And Czech Instagram went off the chains because, of course, Stanek's from Czech Republic, so representing. But just a shame. At least he got to get on the podium. It's a shame for Miata particularly because this is his first podium in F2 because he finished P4 on the road, inherited now P2. It's a shame for at least Stanek got to stand on the podium. He didn't get to stand as the winner, but at least maybe they'll do something nice for him in the next round of Formula 2. So, you're right. Dunn was a time penalty. It wasn't it? It was a 10-second penalty for him. For the infringement, and then Lindblad actually got disqualified because tyre pressures are one of those. If you're over, it doesn't matter by how much, you're gone, you're done. So yes, absolute chaos, I would say, absolute full-on chaos. Right. Before we crack on, a little reminder. Enjoying this podcast, please give it a good rating. 5 stars would be lovely. A comment, engage however you can. It helps get the CHINWAG out to the world. Okay, right. Let's crack on, shall we? We've obviously got to go through bangers and clangers and all that, and then we'll go team by team. I think let's take a little moment now to talk about the delay, the weather. And I feel like this is one, I've not really worked out what video I'm going to do this week, but the rain, the delay, the hour, 20 minutes or so, and the potential to have gone racing that wasn't taken. I think there's a separate conversation around Spa specifically, but the context of Spa is important. The context of... Was it on Thursday where the drivers were doing the run around the track for obviously Antoine and Van Toff, obviously the two young drivers who passed obviously it was 2019 for Hubert, and then Van Toff was 21 or 22, I can't remember which. He was Formula Regional, wasn't he? So that the conversation around, the Van Toff crash was in the wet, and it was a race that arguably should have been called off. Was it 23? Obviously, that wasn't the context for Hubert's accident. It wasn't raining for that race. But, yeah, I think that the conversation around why the race wasn't started is the more pertinent one because, Max spoke afterwards, and there were a number of drivers who were kind of frustrated that the race didn't at least get going somewhat in that window of drier conditions that we had. There was a lot of spray, and spray is the issue, right? I don't remember hearing drivers saying on the radio, like, I'm aquaplaning. I didn't hear the word aquaplaning at all this weekend in Spa, in the Formula 1 anyway. Because that's one thing, that's dangerous as it is. But it's the visibility problem, right? And we saw that in Silverstone, didn't we? When, Hadjar rear-ended Antonelli, put himself in the wall, and he couldn't see anything. Even with the rain lights on, couldn't see anything. So, and Dawood, you say better safe than sorry, right? So, around a track like Spa, it's always going to be a particularly sensitive subject. Going racing when the conditions aren't appropriate. And having a wet tyre, there is no point. Probably may as well just discontinue the wet tyre. Like, it is a waste of energy using it because there is, right now, in Formula 1, there is not a single context outside of putting them on to do practice pit stops or doing show runs at Goodwood where Ollie just lights the rears up and just destroys them. That they are not a wet tyre. They're a space saver in the back of your car, right? If you got a flat and you get a little space saver on, which is the little mini version of your wheel that you should only use for like 50 miles max. It's a space. It doesn't do anything. It's no practical function because even when if there's enough water to need the wet, then it's definitely not going to be visible enough. Because even in appropriate intercondition, there's still too much spray. Now look, I'm not going to sit here as a fan and be like, these drivers should just drive. And I don't care if they can't see, they should drive, right? Because that's how they did it back in the day, right? I'm not going to sit and do that because that's just irresponsible. That's stupid. That is disrespectful to the lives that have been lost in this sport and the development that's been done from a safety point of view, right? It feels like there are solutions, and they might feel like weird, strange solutions, but I feel like there are solutions. And I think that so often we almost like sleepwalk into it, all of this money that goes into this massive event, all the sponsors, the teams, the thousands and thousands of people, all of the projects that go into it, been worked on months and months prior, like activations, brand activations, fans, hundreds of thousands coming to the tracks across the weekend, right? It's such a massive thing. It's such a massive thing, right? Like, just you need to clear water from the track. That is the problem. These current cars, the ground effect focus means that they suck so much water from the ground into the air. The tyres displace so much water again into the air. That water has to go somewhere. Unless you can engineer a car that is able to displace air or water, should I say? Because the reason that these ground effect cars created less dirty air is because the idea is that you have these diffusers at the back, and the dirty air gets chucked up, like vertically into the sky. So rather than going into the car behind, it goes up, and that's why we saw these massively exciting numbers, these low numbers of dirty air, right? Affected, if you're within so many meters, you're only going to lose a tiny little bit of downforce compared to pre-2022. Like, even if it's just, you just have cars there that are able to just drive around the track continuously, just around and round and round, whenever the race cars are not on track, whether it's F2, F3, F1, whatever, if they are not on track because of weather, you just have, I don't know, these 10 cars, these 20 cars that are on site, driven by, I know it's an expense, but if you know it's going to be, you know it's probably going to be a wet weekend, right? You're not going to need these in Bahrain, in Saudi, right? You're not going to need these in a lot of races, right? You're probably not going to need it in, I don't know, 30%, 40% of Grand Prix, which are pretty much guaranteed you're not going to have wet weather. But these ones like Spa, like Japan, like Silverstone even. I mean, Silverstone's got the little Aston Martin thing around the corner. They've got all of these track cars there with road tyres on that could just pound around the track continuously, give the fans something to look at, send out some cars that have a nice engine note, right? Pound around the track, displace the water, because that is, you need cars on track. All the time the track's just sitting there with nothing driving around it. You get a medical car or a safety car once every 20 minutes just doing oh no, it's still too wet. Like, bro, this is Formula One. Like, there must be a solution. And surely just having these like 10, use the Porsche GT3 cars that were going out beforehand in between sessions. There must be a practical solution. It must be a practical solution that can just at least try and displace some of the water, because the problem is the water on track becomes spray. It's not that there's going to be times, of course, where there's too much water on the track and it doesn't matter how much running around, but just have cars going around constantly rather than just having the track just empty and nothing. Like, it's silly, if you ask me, that, and I feel like there are practical solutions that they need to at least try these things. This seems mad to me because they do, Jordan, they do have a sweeper, right? They have like this one sweeper that was just going up like Eau Rouge Radion that's doing about 5 miles an hour. Yeah, have the sweeper, cool, but also have 20 Ginettas with wet tyres on that are just brrr, and just doing little drifts and having a bit of fun. Right, maybe try not to crash, because then if they crash, that creates a problem. So maybe have them driven by professionals who are driving at 80%, so quick but well within their, limitations. And just do that. I don't know. Like, it just feels like there needs to be a middle ground, right? Because, yes, Spa has been the location of too many losses of life. It's a dangerous track. And when you add wet rain conditions, it does make it... I understand where the oversensitivity, over the worry of sending these cars out, and if something does happen, I get that, completely understand that. But also, like, this sport, these cars can drive in the rain. It's incredible moments. Racing in the rain is part of Formula One. Always has been, always should be, unless we're going to put roofs on every circuit. We don't need that. You accept there is a degree of uncertainty and risk every time you get into the car. Like, that's the way it's always going to be. Motorsport is inherently dangerous. It doesn't matter how much you do about it. And it feels like the cars could have gone out, got some laps in, at least some laps in. And I get, look, yeah, Max was complaining. Obviously, Max had a high downforce setup. So you also have to say, when these drivers are saying things, they are also going to be speaking in a way that, right, it's going to benefit them. Because Max had more performance relative to, say, Charles in the wet, because he had more downforce on his car. As soon as it dried up, Charles gained performance relative to Max, and he couldn't get past. Okay, so you have to take what the drivers are saying with a pinch of salt, because they are sports people there. They're trying to maximise their individual performance, right? But I just, come on. Like the amount of Grand Prix that are at risk, regularly at risk of, like, delays and getting called off. The ones that come to mind, Silverstone, Japan, Spa. I mean, a lot of the European ones, but particularly, you could say, like, Imola. Obviously, there's been flooding in Emilia-Romagna before. You know, there is less than half of the tracks are regularly at any significant risk of being rained off. Is what I'm saying. And just, like, I know, it just feels it's just so passive for this massive sport. That's like, I don't know. It should be, and it is, in such a moment right now, to just have these cars sat there. The track just sat there. It could have gone out, didn't go out. It's just a bit frustrating. It's just a bit. Zandvoort as well. Brazil. How do I forget about Interlagos? Canada. Yeah, but even with all them, that is still less than half the tracks in Canada. Get some cars out there to churn around some laps, just continuously drive around the track, displace as much water as possible, and then give it another go. Hopefully the 2026 regulations will serve somewhat to mitigate this, because the cars won't be so ground effect dependent. They will have less downforce, active aero. They will still be open wheel racing cars. Open wheel racing cars are going to chuck water in the air, okay? And big diffusers are going to take the water from under the car and suck it and throw it in the air. That's going to happen. It's going to happen. Unless we, like, fundamentally change these cars, that's going to happen. And we saw, was it year before last, when they were trying out the wheel covers that looked horrific? At least they were trying something. Yeah, it just feels like there could be more. There's definitely more that can be done from a formula point of view. And I do think the 26 cars should make it less of an issue. It'd still be an issue, but less of an issue. But also, I think there's way more that can be done from a track point of view, if you ask me. Maybe I'm just naive, overly simplistic. But it just feels like, you know, we turn up at Spa and it's like, oh, it's raining. Oh no, I didn't expect that. Oh no, like, what are we going to do? We're going to have to delay the start. Oh no, it's spray. I'm so it's like we're shocked. I'm like, no one's shocked. Like, we should have known, you know, is there not more we could be doing? I don't know. Those hideous wheel covers, I know. Tell me about it. Must be the water. Must be the water, Nick. Exactly. It always must be the water. So yeah, look, that was my TED talk about the rain. I guess as well, Spa specifically. Spa will always be an iconic venue. In the same way, to me, I feel about Spa similarly that I do to Monaco. Like, I love Monaco as a track. It's unique. It's different. It has a place in F1. with 24 races. I think Monaco absolutely has a place. An amazing Saturday. I think we should tweak the rules for Monaco, but also we need to add one overtaking opportunity, which I think they could if they really wanted to. With Spa, it's such a great venue for racing, for motorsport, just not F1, and it's like typically when that's the thing. For me, it's like it is the formula that's the issue. There's no low speed corners, like really at all. And the low speed corners, there is not a hope in hell of making an overtake around them. So it is what it is. And it's going to alternate Spa, isn't it? It's going on the alternation calendar, isn't it? Which I kind of forgot about partially. So yeah, hopefully they'll find a way to make it a bit more suited to the modern formula that is Formula 1 from 26 onwards. Anyway, right. Let's crack on then. Let's do bangers and clangers. My predictions: Oscar Piastri race winner. Bosch, yes. Point for Gryffindor. Banger drive, Max Verstappen. I've given myself half a point. Obviously, he won the sprint. Big. Very good in sprint quali as well. In normal quali, just nipped by Charles Leclerc. Couldn't get past Charles in the race, but certainly didn't have a bad race at all. Clearly doesn't have the car. Like the McLarens were on a different planet this weekend. I think half a point's fair for Max, for banger driver. Clanger driver Charles, no. My jinx kind of worked. He didn't win, but podium, happy days. So Charles Leclerc Clanger, no. Banger team McLaren, yes. Comfortable 1-2. Easy. And then Clanger team Ferrari, no, again. Obviously, Lewis's rear brake, still don't fully know exactly. Like, it's new, it's different, it happened. Like, hard to know for sure where to attribute the blame for that between team and Lewis. But Lewis, great recovery drive, obviously had a lot of pace under his car. Not enough to catch Alex, because Alex is the GOAT. But, yeah, pretty good. And yeah, I've got 2.5 points, according to me. You also have 2.5 points. At least this is what I've said. But I will do a poll and ask who should win. Who should win? This is for everyone on YouTube. Win bangers and clangers predictions. So what is it? Womo or you people? I didn't know how to. Who should win bangers and clangers? So you went Oscar race win, correct? You also went Max banger drive. I've given half a point for both, so that kind of cancels each other out. Clanger drive Franco. I've given half a point for Franco, but maybe it's a full point. I don't know. Banger team Ferrari, not a full point, but half a point. And then Clanger team Alpine, no. So those are yours. These are mine. I mean, I've got banger team McLaren, and come on, that's a definite point. Oscar is obviously a definite. I've definitely got at least 2.5, maybe 3 if you want to give Max a full point. You've got definitely one, obviously Oscar. Maybe 1 for Max. Maybe 1 for Franco. Chat is biased for chat. Well, true. But not true. I'm going to have faith. I'm going to say you lot are not going to be biased. You are not going to allow your horse in the race to distract you from objective truth. And 240 of you voted, so just take a swig while you. I mean, you've definitely the votes going is close. Is pretty close, but on the wrong side of history on this one. You have gone 58% for you. Shock. You were right. The chat is biased to chat. Fine. So be it. You win. I hope you're happy. Okay. Yeah. Right. Come on then. Actual bangers and clangers. Let's do it. Let's give out the rewards, the prizes. Who wins, who loses. Starting with banger driver. Who banged the most this weekend? Now, of course, I'm going to take into account sprint quali, sprint race, quali, and the race. However, the race on Sunday is the most important. That should be 70% of it. Quali, very important for the race. The sprints are a factor, definitely, that should be considered, but not as heavily as the race, because that is the biggest part of the weekend, undoubtedly. I have took a while on this one, actually, because there's a few contenders. I said Charles earlier. I think Charles maximised his weekend. I can't think of anything Charles. He got past Lando in the sprint. Obviously lost position, but the McLaren's a lot quicker. He held off Max in the main race. He qualified third, delivered third in the race. I don't see much more Charles could have done. Obviously, Bortoletto, points. Gasly, point. Lawson, really solid for him this weekend. There's a number of drivers. But ultimately, I think the context, I've given it Oscar. He was superb in sprint quali, big gap. There's nothing he could have done. Given the setup Max had, I don't believe there's anything Oscar could have done to retain that P1 in the race. I don't think he got a bad run out of turn one. I don't think he got a bad run up of Eau Rouge Radion. Max had a lot less downforce on the car. It was dry. And yeah, I don't see any more Oscar could have done. In that situation, in qualifying, Oscar did almost get knocked out in Q2. He was way too close for comfort. And then he did also make a mistake through turn 14, I want to say, where he did have the pace to put it on pole, didn't. And actually that worked a treat in the end. But then the way he got past his teammate, Lando, in the race, the way he held onto the mediums, didn't make a mistake, which again is important context. We'll come back to that. For me, it's Oscar. Alex, obviously, great quali, great race. Sprint, had engine issues, went out in SQ1, didn't make any progress in the race. I think in the championship context, these performances, you're always going to weigh higher the performances at the top, right? And given how tight it is, the way Oscar delivered this weekend was, he outscored Lando in both the sprint and the main race. I think Oscar deserves it. There's a lot of drivers who are in with a shout, but I've given it Oscar. But what about you? Well, 1,177 of you have voted, which is way less than usual, but it was a terrible race, so I don't blame you. And your banger drive this weekend for the 2025 Brazilian? I wish. Interlagos is never a clanger. For the 2025 Belgian Grand Prix is Lewis Hamilton. 35% of the vote. 26% to Oscar Piastri. 15% Charles Leclerc. 13% Alex Albon. Now, Lewis obviously honked in qualifying for both sprint and main race. However, I get it. Because without Lewis's moves at the start of the race, carving through the field, his early gamble on the inters to slicks as well, he made that call, came in, perfect timing, gained a bunch of positions, jumped from, started P16, was P7, and had to save. He was light on fuel, so didn't obviously want to get disqualified, so was having to do a bit more lifting and coasting than he would have liked. It was a fantastic recovery from Lewis. He is obviously responsible for qualifying where he is, not fully. There's always a split between driver and team, of course, but the recovery drive was great. So I get it, and it was a dead race. So thank you, Lewis, for actually delivering some kind of entertainment. Because it is like Lewis cutting through and driving like that 21 Brazil Grand Prix. There was moments I was like, bro, this guy's, he just keeps going. He just keeps overtaking people. Like it was very impressive, very good. So 35% of the vote, Lewis Hamilton, fair play. I wouldn't have gone for him, but fair play. I get it. I get it. And he had a pit lane start. He did, which was the strat, because there were a bunch of drivers who took pit lane starts. And if you didn't, then, Stroll got absolutely... Everyone flew past him because you had to take a pit lane start because your setup was so key. It's kind of a strategy in itself, isn't it? You lose more by having the wrong setup on the car like Ocon had. Ocon almost was a victim of qualifying. He didn't qualify great, but like if he qualified even further back, they should have just changed the car because the ass was quick. I think if Ocon had changed the car, taken a pit lane start, then he would have finished better than he did. But anyway, you've given it Lewis for bang on, which again, he was good entertainment for the race. Clanger drive, I've gone Kimi, which look, if you haven't seen, there's like an interview with Kimi, and it's like it's a tough watch. I'll be honest. Like you can tell he's been very upset, and he's a kid. He's an 18-year-old kid, and he has been put into an incredibly intense environment. Not just F1, but a top team in F1. I know Mercedes aren't firing all cylinders, but he has been put in a very, very difficult, challenging situation that I can't even begin to fathom, being exposed to the pressure and the expectation at 18 years old. Like it's a lot, and it's a lot for any young driver. Max came in when he was 17. Ollie's not much older than Kimi. Like drivers are trending younger and younger and younger to coming in. Like Lewis was 22 when he started. It's like 4 years older than Kimi. Like, and I really hope that he's got the right people around him, because Toto has put a lot of expectation, said a lot of words about Kimi, and we know what he can do. We know what he did in Miami. That doesn't happen unless you have some serious ability and talent there. And it's raw, and he absolutely has potential to be something special, really, truly. Of course he does, but potential is no guarantee of anything. And he's going through a very challenging time at the minute. That hopefully, and so many drivers bounce back from big adversity. I always go back to Albon on this, right? His 2020 season was tough. I remember it very well. He wasn't as young as Kimi, but he was still very young. And he went through the slinger, destroyed by Max every weekend, getting dogged on online, like had a year out, and he's come back and he's thriving, right? Gasly, all the drivers that have gone through the Red Bull situation. Lawson, I feel like, is only now just starting to kind of get consistently close to Hadjar now. Because you look, even like Hadjar, Lawson, quali gap, right? In all the sessions they've been teammates, Lawson's only out-qualified Hadjar twice. In 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 times. It's 11-2 in favour of Hadjar. But this weekend, it was 81 hundredths in favour of Hadjar, and then 18 thousandths ahead of in favour of Hadjar. So Liam's now getting there, but it's so much to put on these drivers, and it's like when you see a driver so visibly upset, who's so young as well, but he is having a difficult spell. Like he is not driving particularly well at the minute, and yeah, you have to call it as you see it, And he's had another poor weekend out in Q1, SQ1 and Q1. Didn't really make much of a recovery during the race. George is kind of a quite comfortable P5 in the race, and it's tough on him, and it's Toto's responsibility to make sure that this doesn't end up spiraling, because it feels like he needs a good performance soonish. And maybe there's a little bit of time off now between Hungary. And then we got the proper summer break. So, yeah, I hope he finds a way to move forward. But it was not a good weekend for Kimi Antonelli this time out. Your clanger driver is also Kimi Antonelli. 29% of you. 22% Isaac Hadjar, which is harsh considering why he had a bad weekend. Because he had engine issues. But to be honest, I didn't know about the engine issues until post-race. He was talking about it. So all I knew is that Lawson got past him, and then Lawson got priority pit stop. And then Hadjar pitted late, and then was right at the back, and then went onto the hards early and was last. So knowing now that Hadjar had a PU issue in the straights, he was just getting destroyed. So, yeah, but it is what it is. 70% Norris. For me, it was Antonelli or Norris for clanger, and I went Antonelli, but I understand why 17% of you went for Norris, which we'll get into, and then 10% Science, which again, Science, I almost he's had so much bad luck, and he did so well in the sprint. I'm I have to give bro benefit of doubt. Yeah, he had a poor race, but also I think the setup was nowhere. He took a pit lane. He took a pit lane, didn't he, Science? I'm sure he did. But there you go. Another weekend to forget for Carlos Sainz. Although he did score some points, so it's not all bad. Banger team McLaren, obviously. You've also got McLaren 68%, 24% of Ferrari, which they definitely did make a step forward, so that is good, promising. The reverse jinx kind of worked, so we'll take that. 3% Sauber, bought a lot of points. Bosch. 2% Williams, Albon points, and Sainz points in the sprint, but didn't live up to full expectation. So, mini Bosch on that front. Clanger team Aston, and you've also gone Aston, 75%. I mean, obviously it's Aston. They honked this weekend. 7% Haas, which is a good shout actually, because Haas had a lot of potential. Haas were probably the team with the most potential that didn't deliver on it in terms of a scale. They had a very, very quick car. I think they were possibly 6th quickest car, and they came away from the race with 0 points. So that's not good. 6% Mercedes, not great. They were slow as well. 6% Alpine, which is Gasly does what he does, but Alpine typically aren't particularly quick, are they? Oh, Alpine. So this year, totals are on screen now. If you want to read them, you can. This is going to be more interesting towards the end of the year, I guess, where we tot up who has got the most bangers and clangers. These are all my totals throughout the year. And we've got 3 bangers for Mercedes, 3 bangers for Sauber as well. It's kind of crazy. And then your totals, you've got 4 bangers for McLaren. You papaya bias people. Can't believe it. Shocking. Jamie, you just joined. Well, you can go back. If you don't want to look at live chat, you can just rewind back to the front if you are here on YouTube. You can do that. And don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Little reminder, just in case you forgot. Double check. You might think you are, but you might actually not be subscribed. That does happen to me often, actually, with channels that I'm in my golf era at the minute. Although I just spray. Actually, anyone in live chat, to me, I'm probably not helping by standing up, but I am trying to stand on one leg and wiggle. I sprained my ankle really badly last night. Basically, it was actually netball hoop in the back garden, going for one of them, going for a Kobe. And then I'm here, and I step in to do the swish, and as I step, the ground was obviously uneven, and my foot goes under, and I heard it. I heard it it wasn't like a crack. It was like a. I don't know how to describe it. Like a squelch. It was and immediately I was like. This is done. This is over. It's going to be amputated. It was, the pain was something else. It was not scream the house down pain, but it was horrible. Getting old, yeah, exactly, Mark. Yeah. Last time I sprained an ankle like this when I was probably about 14 playing football. But if anyone's got any crutches for 3 weeks, V, oh my god, look. to be honest, today I'm just like I've had ice on it. I've got an ankle support on it. I've had ice on it about 4 times today, and I'm just trying to kind of, because I know you got a rest, ice elevation, compression elevation. Here's one. Han won't forget. Right, so when Han said rice, and she was like, rest, ice, compression, eat. And I was like, that's not what the E stands for. I was like, I will eat. I will gladly eat. But that means elevation. Oh, that was funny. But yeah, so I'm just trying to kind of keep it moving, because I don't, as much as you should rest it, but you need to keep it moving as well. Mobility is important. So how did I get onto this? Why am I talking about my foot? I'm live in front of 1,200 people, and I'm just chatting about my foot. Stabilization is key. Yeah. Well, here we go. Anyway, it is what it is. I did actually order a crutch, and it's coming tomorrow. So, but it doesn't feel too bad right now. So we'll be fine. We will live. We will live. Okay, excellent. Let's talk. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about McLaren first, because usually I kind of leave the saucy, exciting stuff to the end. But we've been live for over an hour now, so yeah, we've got we've got to talk about McLaren, because there wasn't much to look into for this race, but it was very interesting. The teammate dynamic between the two Drivers' Championship protagonists, because it is definitely one of them two winning it this year. And yeah, look, I've seen Anthony Davidson did a really good breakdown on Sky for the kind of lap 1 move by Oscar. You know, Lando's spoken about it, the slipstream effects that you get in the rain, because it's a good point. Like, when you're leading, you are the first one to hit the water as well, which there is a degree of resistance there. So the slipstream effect is heightened, which I think is a fair point. But you look at how early Oscar passed Lando down the Kemmel Straight. Like, he got the move done with plenty of time in hand, distance in hand. And Lando did mess up turn 1. Like, Oscar kind of sent him a dummy on the inside. Lando took a suboptimal line, probably because of the dummy. Definitely because of the dummy. Why else would he take that line? It was a tight line. Lost it on the rear. Oscar was right on his gearbox at the very start, and followed him up the Eau Rouge Radion. Even if Oscar hadn't been as brave as he was, because he did gain on Lando even through Eau Rouge Radion, to the point where Oscar, like, pulling out to the left, like, these margins are so fine. Like, watching it live and even watching the replay, Oscar is very close to the back of Lando. Like, it's tight. And, like, that space to the left, Lando, you know, knows he's coming, and there's the space there. But, bro, that was fine. If anything, Oscar was catching him too quickly. If Oscar had been a little bit more passive through Eau Rouge Radion, he still would have easily got past Lando, and it would have been a more comfortable pass. But because he was so good through turn 1 and good through Eau Rouge Radion, he almost got there too quickly. But yeah, made the move. And then obviously you're ahead, goes on to the mediums, preferential pit strategy wise, because he's ahead, which is fair. You know, that's the way McLaren do it, and I think that's completely fine. And Lando comes in a lap later, tries the hards. The thing is, they knew the McLarens were going to be comfortable. So in Lando's position, you might as well gamble and hope that the C1, remember, because they had the gap in the compounds. So it was C1, no C2, but then C3 next. You might as well gamble. You might as well do that. Lando could just go full send. He lost a bunch of time at the start because it takes a long time to warm up the hards because it's such a hard compound. But you might as well do the gamble. And then obviously Lando is pushing quali lap, boom, 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 trying to catch Oscar. Oscar is managing. It kind of became clear quite early that this was going to essentially be a one-stop, which Pirelli were trying to circumnavigate with the C1, C3, C4 compound choice. But obviously the rain came, so that mixes things up a bit as well. And yeah, obviously Lando makes there's like 3 mistakes that he makes during that hard compound stint. He locks up twice going into turn 1, once right at the end, once earlier on. Loses, the AWS graphics. He probably lost about 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds combined in those 2 lockups at turn 1. Probably more like 1.5. And then he loses out through Portier, turn 10, goes wide, lost about 1 second, maybe 1 second and a bit there. So you're talking maybe 3.5, 4 if you're going to be really critical. And obviously the gap at the end is 3.5 seconds. Lando had a slow pit stop as well, which obviously can't be helped on his end. Was there an opportunity for Lando to win this race realistically? I mean, look, this is one for the poll. And bear in mind, right, I'm going to do the poll now. So, did Lando throw away a genuine chance to win on the hard stint? So I'm not even talking about the start of the race, right? Lando lost position, but I think realistically, Lando holding on to position lap 1 was always going to be very unlikely. So I'm not too critical of Lando for losing. Yeah, he didn't. He made it easy for Oscar, easier than it should have been on lap 1. But ultimately, I think Oscar's passing him anyway, even if Lando nails turn 1, to be honest. So I'm more talking about the hard stint that Lando was on, where he has those 3 mistakes. Does he have a genuine chance to overtake Oscar if he doesn't make those 3 mistakes? So, yeah, it's just a yes or no, I guess. I'm just going to leave 2 options. Because you needed about, they were saying you needed about a 5/6 delta to get a move done. It's one thing Lando catching Oscar and getting into his DRS. It's another thing him actually getting a move done. Obviously, the end of the Kemmel Straight is a great chance to get a move done. You get close. The thing is as well, you get close to the driver ahead. And we saw this with Lewis and Alex. You get within 1.5 seconds and then the dirty air starts to kind of mess you up a bit. So Lewis was catching Alex at a rate of knots, but then once he got too close, then he didn't have enough. That's why you need that 0.5 second, 0.6 offset. It's not enough to just be 3-4 tenths quicker. You need more than that. So also, Oscar did put in his PBs in the last couple of laps. So that indicates that he probably had pace in hand and he was probably just managing. And he was on the medium, so he just didn't need to push. And obviously with Lando making these errors, that buys window a bit more of a window for Oscar to, he knows the gap. He's team's keeping him up to date. His garage is on his side. Lando's garage is on his side. That's the way it goes. So, you factor all that in. Do I think... Well, I want to know what you think. Like, a genuine chance where Lando would have been in DRS and, like, at least had a good go at trying to overtake Oscar. Lando threw away the chance to pressure Oscar. He did, Henry. I think he could have pressured him more. Absolutely, of course he could have. And this is what I was saying earlier about Max, right? Max in the sprint had Oscar on his gearbox the whole race. Couldn't make a mistake. Couldn't afford to make a mistake, because especially through like the middle sector, the McLaren was right on him because it had the higher downforce and down the straights. And with DRS, Oscar was always close at the end of the Kemmel Straight, within a few tenths. And I know it's a 15-lap race, it's shorter, but Max didn't make a mistake. And Nico Rosberg kind of alluded to this after Lando's interview as well. And Lando was kind of, mistakes happen, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, that they do. But the greatest, and again, we are comparing here, like we're talking about the greatest of the greatest, right? Prime Verstappen, prime Hamilton, prime Schumacher, prime Alonso, prime Senna, prime all like these. There are a small, there's a small number of drivers, and we've been almost spoiled. There's always been a generational driver on the grid, right? In the entire time I've been watching the sport. But those drivers kind of make it look easy. When you see Max, around Mexico, a couple of years ago where he just did like 20 laps within like a tenth of each other or something ridiculous. Like, there are drivers who can do that, who can just not make mistakes and just lock in. And unfortunately, Lando making, what's the word? Not unprovoked. Just mistakes on his own. I can't remember. There's a name for it. I can't know what you call it. Just making a mistake. Like when he was leading in Singapore last year and he almost crashed like twice. Like, these potential, these mistakes or close calls to mistakes, random mistakes, just out of nowhere, have been, unfortunately, been part of the Lando Norris we've seen since he started winning races. And you can kind of get away with it a bit more when you're in the field or you're chasing even, right? Because he was chasing. He was pushing quali laps each, like, again and again. So when you're pushing on that 100%, most drivers are going to make mistakes like Lando did. But there are that small portion of the elite who, more often than not, aren't going to make those mistakes. And I think that's the difference. And no one's perfect. Max makes mistakes. Lewis makes mistakes. Schumacher, Senna. You know, all the greats make mistakes. It's not about that. It's, do these mistakes become a consistent, almost expected part of your racing when you're at the front, you know, I guess. And unfortunately, unforced errors. There we go. Thank you, chat. Complete mind blank on that one. Unforced errors have, they are. I think it's pretty conclusive that they are all too common part of Lando's running. Do I think he threw away a genuine chance to win? No. I think without those mistakes, he gets close to Oscar. He then slows down when it's in the dirty air. And I think Oscar has enough to get the hammer down and keep Lando at bay. I think Lando lost that race on lap 1. He didn't lose that race on the hard tyre stint. So I would say no to the poll, personally. I don't think he threw away a genuine chance to win. But these mistakes don't bode well. It you know, from a momentum point of view, momentum is a tricky word, right? Because it just takes one rate. Like, Lando is quick around Hungary, right? So maybe he cooks there and all of a sudden it's flipped. But I don't think he threw away his chance on the mediums and on the hard stint. But I do just think that he's still got work to do. He's still got work to do to be a driver who doesn't make these unforced errors. So it's a shame, but we know he is good enough and he has his day often enough that he will be a consistent figure in this title fight. But I've got no reason to believe that Oscar won't win this championship. I think from the 13 races we've done so far, I think Oscar absolutely deserves to be ahead. In terms of deserves to be ahead by more, to be honest. And hopefully Lando can find something, because he was good in many ways this weekend, but not good enough to win a title. He's still got work to do, you know. He's still got work to do. This is an opportunity to go through some supers as well. Thank you, Muted. Did you remember to fix the Scuderia typo? I did. Sorry, this is from earlier. Where's the old Scuderia typo? I explicitly, and I almost missed it as well, because I am stupid. So look, Scuderia, look with the eye. Bosh. Thank you, Muted, for reminding me. And thank you, Daniel Metcalf, as well, for the same shout. Thank you to the Dutch. It's not showing me your full name. The Dutch Star Wars guy. Appreciate the super chat. Very kind of you. I'll go back to full screen briefly. Can you explain where the obsession with Lando's mum came from? I think I saw her 2,000 times throughout this weekend. Well, she is Belgian. Lando is half Belgian on his mum's side. So I guess that plays into it. Oscar's mum as well. Saw Yuki, which was really funny, wholesome content, because she was like, she was like, I'm looking out for my boys this weekend, like your boys, Oscar and Yuki. Like Yuki is her adopted son. It's very sweet. But yeah, I think that's why Lando's mum was featuring quite heavily, because she's Belgian Grand Prix. So it's kind of Lando's home race in a way. Thank you, Bobby, for the super chat. How do you think Palou would stack up on the current F1 grids? Alex Palou, IndyCar champion, multiple time IndyCar champion. IndyCar has not had this kind of dominance since Bourdais in the mid 2000s. So I think that, you know what, like Alex has clearly a lot of raw ability and talent, and it's a question for any driver who is established in a different series coming into F1 of adaptability. And you look at, say, Scott McLaughlin, who was rapid in V8s in Australia and then has come to IndyCar and been rapid in IndyCar. You look at a driver like Fernando Alonso, who's been rapid in F1 through every single generation of car he's raced in, which essentially, you know, F1 today in 2025 versus F1 10 years ago in 2015 might as well be a completely different type of motorsport, right? The cars are so different. But Fernando's always been quick. So the question with Palou, like he has the peaks of ability, absolutely. Does he have the adaptability to adapt to a 2026, it'd be for him, F1 car? It's going to be fresh for everyone. You would expect the younger drivers will adapt quicker because, you know, it's going to be more of what they know, right? They're going to have less inherent knowledge and information. I think Ricciardo, Vettel were two good examples of drivers who kind of had their peaks at various similar times in their careers and the cars that they lust back for. Vettel, obviously, his prime Red Bull. Ricciardo, his like 2014 Red Bull. And they just we never saw the same Seb and Daniel in I'm not even talking ground effects, like, you know, 2020 onwards. Like we never saw them two operating at their ceiling. So I think that would be the thing with Palou. Like, can he adapt? Because he absolutely has the peaks, you know. And thank you, Ajinkya, for the super chat. Is Lando the new David Coulthard? I kind of missed Coulthard. Like he was kind of before my time. Well, when I was a kid, like West McLaren's my earliest memory, but it was more Mika, because Mika was the one winning the title. So obviously you glory hunt as a child, don't you? Of course you do. So Mika was the guy who's, for me, is most prominent, and him being the one going against Schumacher, like Schumacher in. Even though my favourite colour is red, but I was always more of a Mika guy than a Schumacher guy, But yeah, I guess Coulthard, I've read and I've heard a lot about his potential, and he never quite lived up to it. Yeah, I think this, I do think, you know, it might not, but if I had to put money on it, I think this title will slip away from Lando Norris, and I think Oscar will win it, and will Lando get another opportunity? And if he does, like, if Oscar's going to be his teammate for the long term, like, Lando needs to find something, because Oscar's a lot less experienced, yet he's driving like a driver with a lot more experience. That just feels like the objective truth to me in this moment. But there you go. Right, okay. We've talked about McLaren. Red Bull. Obviously, Yuki got the new floor for quali and delivered a P7, which I was very happy about. Things didn't go quite so well for him in the race. He was saying, you know, miscommunication with the team. I'm not sure exactly. Basically, he came in too late. He came in way too late, lost about 5 positions, stuck behind Gasly all race. And yeah, shame, because again, big step forward in quality. It's a long lap Spa. He was still 0.381 behind Max in Q3, but around a long lap like Spa, that's better than it has been. And yeah, I'm glad it feels like Mekier's coming in you know, Yuki, this is good for Yuki, I think. I think it's going to galvanise him and give him the best opportunity he can to be the best version of himself. Because Laurent understands Yuki. He's worked with Yuki for a long time. So I'm very hopeful that as much as the race didn't turn out well for Yuki, this is a sign of things to come. And then, as for Max, yeah, look, I think Max kind of maximised his weekend, you know? Like, I don't think he could have done much more with the hardware underneath him. You know, they made the right call in qualifying, and it paid dividends in the race, in the sprint race, sorry. In sprint qualifying, they made the right call, which worked in the sprint race. And in normal quali, yeah, they had to bolt more downforce on. They were right to do so because it did rain. And yeah, like Charles out qualifying Max by 0.003 of a second probably did make the difference in the podium in the end, which credit to Charles. But yeah, like Max, it does feel like, it feels like from everything that's been said this weekend, and again, I've always said it feels like a no-brainer that Max stays and gives Red Bull a chance in 26 to show what they can do. And then if they're great, sweet, he'll stay. If they're not, you will be able to see which teams have smashed these new regulations. Who am I going to go to? Jump there, maybe win a couple of more titles in 27 and 28, and then go do Le Mans. That's probably how it would go for Max. That's what I reckon. So, but I do think he wants to make it work at Red Bull. I really do. So, as much as Christian's left and there's been a lot of top personnel leaving, there's also a lot of Red Bull racing that's been there for as long as Max has, right? So he feels loyal to this team, not just because of the name above the door, but the people at Red Bull Racing. So, yeah, I hope that, I mean, it just makes sense. That just makes sense. Give George and Kimi next year as well. If Kimi isn't showing the progress Toto needs, then maybe, yeah, George and Max for 27 could be the play. I don't know. That seems pretty crazy. But yeah, I think that all in all, damage limitation, signs of promise for Yuki is that's what I'm holding on to as a long-term Yuki coin investor. Okay, investor. Oh dear, Red Bull, what are you like? Right, Aston Martin, terrible, honked, stunk, shocking. Stroll was like, we kind of maximised the weekend, and he finished 14th in the race, which is actually better than Alonso. Alonso just team didn't do him any favours either. Like, it was just bad. Yeah, that Aston Martin, it's the Aston Martin now. It is the Aston Martin. I think that fully summarises my feeling right now on the green team. They are Aston Martin. They're up, they're down, they're in, they're out, they're round, they're round. And they'll probably be rapid in Hungary. So watch this space, really. Not much more to say. No, I've literally got nothing more to say on Aston Martin. Not going to waste any of your time. Mercedes, who are in somewhat free fall at the minute. I mean, Ferrari have definitely improved. And Max is still able to pull out these clutch weekends in his Red Bull. I think Kimi's having a wobble and it's putting more pressure on George, or more eyeballs, more highlight on George. I think getting P5 is the max he could have done this weekend with the car he's got. George was talking about going back to an old spec. This is the problem, right? Because yes, Mercedes have their own engine, fine, whoop-de-doo. But they're still running into roadblocks. They've still got their driver saying halfway through the season, we need to go back to the early spec. It's 2025. We've had these ground effect regulations for 22, 23, 24, in the fourth year of it. And George is saying we need to go back to an earlier season spec. Now, maybe he's just talking out of his arse, right? I don't know. But there is clearly an issue with the Mercedes correlation. And if Max is looking for a team for 26, which again, I think he's going to stay at Red Bull. I don't think he was ever talking about leaving. I don't think there was ever a genuine, real consideration about leaving for 26, in my opinion. But looking at Mercedes, And they're still struggling with correlation. They're still bringing upgrades that they don't fully understand. And they're still not addressing the problems with their cars that they've had for so long. Like, as you say, Dawood, cold cheat code isn't working anymore either. Even when it's a bit chilly, all of a sudden it's like, it's not actually, the Ferraris made a gain. The McLarens have buggered off into the distance. Like, it shouldn't be filling Max with confidence that Mercedes is actually the right choice. Because McLaren are doing such a great job. McLaren are still going to have Rob Marshall and Peter Prodromou and this amazing technical team in 2026 with these new regs. And there's no good reason to not think McLaren are going to nail it for that as well. Yes, Mercedes will do their engine thing. But the way the engines are divvied out, yeah, you design the car around the engine. But the way the teams, the power unit providers divvy out the engines is kind of random. They do have things in place that stop a manufacturer team giving a diet version of the best engine to their customers. It doesn't really work like that anymore. And this is why Alpine have moved to Mercedes. So, yeah, it's... Toto was pulling some concerned faces this weekend. They never understood these regs, yeah. That's kind of it, isn't it? Toto only wants Max. Do you reckon, Yandy? Do you reckon? Yeah, I think I'd be surprised if Mercedes are genuinely... Because, yes, these new 26 cars aren't going to be as ground effect as the current cars, but there's no positive momentum from the technical side. So there's no logic to hold on to. There's plenty of logic with McLaren to hold on to be like, these guys are going to nail it. And I know with Ferrari, it feels like they're so close. They're so close to a breakthrough, but they just can't quite get there. But then you could say the same about Mercedes, I suppose. Say the same about Williams, but they've not bought any upgrades this year, seemingly, apparently, allegedly. And yeah, I mean, Alex cooked. He was disappointed to lose out on P5 in the race. Obviously, Carlos got big points in the sprint. Relative. Obviously, you don't get many points for the sprint at all. But yeah, Williams still, clearly, and Vals has talked about this, they are still not fully unrubbishified. Like, they are still struggling with certain limitations that have been in place since even before Dorilton took over. So they've invested a lot, they've changed a lot, but it's not this, it's not the MTC at Grove, right? It's not this fully seamless, it's not Aston Martin yet, right? There's still work to be done. And yeah, Carlos is more often than not seemingly falling on the wrong end of it. He did say himself, he takes responsibility for pushing a setup direction that didn't work in the race. So there is that. But I mean, they've got a blinding lineup at the end of the day. Look, whatever, right? I can sit here for another half an hour and be smug about Albon being great, right? Albon's proved a lot of you wrong, right? That's fair to say. Regardless of who you support, whatever, Williams are going into next year with two blinding drivers, with a team with great momentum that just need a few more things from a back-end point of view, but have also been focusing on 26 for absolutely ages. There is reason to be optimistic. I think Williams' podiums next year should... I don't think there's any good excuse that Williams aren't consistent podium potential next year. If they're not, I think they will have under-delivered on the expectations, considering they'll have a Mercedes power unit, how long the Dorilton and Vals have been in there, how good Sainz and Albon are. I think for me, they should be. They should be. And if they're not, I think they will be disappointed themselves, But yeah, Albon's cooking. Sainz, he's got more unlucky. I said this in my mid-season report. I think Sainz has done better than the points reflect, and that reflected in my rating. So yeah, I think more to come from Williams. Good points on the board. Good little buffer to Sauber now. I think they'll be fine for P5 by the end of the year. Well done, Alex. Love to see him holding off Lewis. Love to see him scrapping with the Ferraris in Imola. Yeah, man. Love to see it. I love Carlos. Carlos is great. I love Carlos. P3. Yeah. Why P3? It lives rent free. It lives rent free, truly. Racing Balls. Yeah, I mean, Hadjar definitely had the pace to be top 10. Obviously, Lawson finished P8 and Hadjar was running ahead of Lawson, but then ran into these PU issues. I assume that's why Lawson got past / got the early pit stop, because the team saw there was an issue with Isaac's car that wasn't on Liam's car, so then you have to prioritise the car without the issue. So shame for Isaac. But yeah, I think Liam's had now some decent performances, kind of, back to back now. Like he got P6 in Austria, obviously retired in Silverstone, then P8 here. He needed this now. Lindblad almost won that feature race, and then he got disqualified. Liam needed this, and he needs this good momentum now. And maybe for Liam as well, like Mekies being in position, maybe he will be looking for stability and be like, you know what, Lindblad, let's not rush you in. Let's do things a bit differently. Let's maybe keep you in, a support role. We can give you loads of FP1s and all that, and keep Lawson, Hadjar in Racing Bulls next year, and Tsunoda, Verstappen. I could very much see the logic if Mekies was to do that and was to go that way. I think that's what should happen, in my opinion, in my personal opinion. But remains to be seen. It's good to see Liam doing well, but also Hadjar is still quicker. Even now, is still quicker. So yeah, Hadjar's got some serious talent. They've got a good driver on their hands there in Isaac, and they just need to make sure that they give him the best opportunity to thrive and succeed, because that's the thing, that Red Bull Junior system has created a lot of careers, but also it's bitten and spat out a lot of drivers as well. And it's hopefully this new era makes Red Bull a bit more of a consistent conveyor belt of new talent, and giving them an opportunity and they can actually really fight in this top car. That'd be exciting. That'd be good to see. But yeah, all in all, strong from both drivers, just unlucky for Isaac in the end. And biggest surprise of the season, Halil, I completely agree. I think a lot of, he was very good in F3, was Hadjar. Had a difficult first year in F2, and that kind of took everyone's attention off of him. But in F3, he was fighting with Behrman and Martins. He was up there. So there was, but you have a dodgy F2 season, and it can completely throw everyone off you. So it is what it is. Haas, said it before, say it again. Biggest missed opportunity this weekend. Sorry, they delivered the points in the sprint for sure, but they should have delivered points in the race. Absolutely, split the strategy in terms of car setup. Ocon with the low downforce obviously wasn't the one. Ollie had an issue. He spoke about it. I can't remember exactly what he said it was. He spoke about it. You can watch the on the F1 YouTube channel, the drivers post-race stuff. He lost a bunch of positions there with a car issue. He had the pace, but was kind of stuck in the DRS train. So Ollie definitely should have got some points, had the pace to get some points, as did Hadjar, as did a bunch of drivers. But it feels like opportunity missed. Ocon, wasn't happy with a few things. He said he was running on tyres for most of the race that we used. Shouldn't have been that way. Oh yeah, and Ollie's radio after quali, he was fuming with Yuki. He was fuming with Yuki. I mean, fair enough. Like, it was cheeky what Yuki did, and you have this like agreement between drivers that you shouldn't cut in, but also everyone for themselves. So yeah. But yeah, Ollie kind of lost his head a bit there. But I get it. There's like a clip of Yuki waiting to come out, and Ollie walks past his garage and just like stares, like glares at him, which I thought was very was very sassy. God, I'm stretching my leg out because this foot is. I'll take this ankle support off overnight and get some more ice on it. But yeah, all in all, disappointing because it's so tight at the bottom. It's so tight, and you can't afford, when you've got a car that's good. And the Haas, it seems like it's becoming more consistent. I expect it to be decent around Hungary, but I think this was a missed opportunity. I do think this was a missed opportunity at Spa for the Haas boys. Ferrari. Charles definitely. I could have given Charles driver of the weekend. But banger driver, I truly could have. I truly could have given it him. I think he is going under the radar. I think he's performing very well. I've got a lot of love for Charles. I've got a lot of belief in Charles. And yeah, Lewis, it wasn't quite so happy with the changes, but I still think, that Ferrari's made a step forward. Hungaroring's a very, very different circuit to Spa. So, I think we'll see. Lewis was fun to watch. Charles did a great job holding off Max. Again, lower downforce, was struggling on his tyres, you could see, but just positioned his car right at the right times. And, as much as, the toe effect is strong in the wet, because Charles had that low downforce down the Kemmel Straight, he was able to just about hold on ahead of Max, and then just, again, no big mistakes. Sorry, Lando, I hate to keep coming back to it, but the top drivers, and for me, those are, that's Max and Oscar's getting close, but that's Max and Charles right now in F1, the top drivers, and Alonso, Hamilton, not necessarily right now, but in their primes, them as well. But right now, I think Leclerc, Verstappen for me is still a cut above, and these guys, when they're operating, when they're on their job, they're not making these mistakes. They've made mistakes. I'm not saying they've never made a mistake, but I'm saying they're not defined by these mistakes in the same way. Finally catching a live X12 F1. Welcome. Thank you for coming. But yeah, well done, Ferrari. The reverse jinx worked. Alpine, Gasly, Cook, thank you. Lovely, jubbly, good to see. Love your work. Colapinto was always going to be a difficult weekend for him in an Alpine that he's still getting on top of. Tricky conditions. Nothing really to write home. It wasn't... It's hard to say, isn't it? Because Gasly is doing... Gasly's got to Q3 seven, 8 times now, whatever it is. And he's got 20 points. So it's how much of it is Gasly overperforming, doing an amazing job? How much of it is, Colapinto not being amazing, doing not being amazing? It's hard to say. So yeah, I think they need to stick by Colapinto. I hope they stick by Colapinto now that they've made that call. You need to stand by it, I think. Give him the chance. Because, again, his qualifying delta, what was he off Gasly this weekend? He was 0.416 off of Gasly in sprint quali, but then he was only 0.222 off Gasly in normal quali. So, the average is 285. So it's not horrific. It could be worse. And given the context, given the lack of preseason testing, given the just thrown in super last minute, Franco out and out pace wise is not doing a terrible job. It's not doing a good job. It's definitely a poor job, but it's not a terrible job. Not terrible. And then Sauber. Bortoletto. Banger. Simply lovely. Gabby, love your work. Great lads. And yeah, he's now ahead of Nico in the head-to-head. Just marginally. And was the stronger of the two cars. He wanted to get past the team let Gabby ahead of Hulkenberg. They swapped them. And yeah, obviously Hulk finished P12. Gabby finished P9. So yeah, I think Gabby was the stronger driver basically all weekend of the two, which is hugely impressive. Obviously, Hulkenberg got his podium in Silverstone last time out, but this time out, the spoils went to the Brazilian. Chuffed for him. So, yeah, I think that Bonotto and Wheatley have got a decent little ship going now. They've got Bonotto focusing on the engine and the technical stuff, the stuff he's best at, the positions he thrives in. And then Wheatley, obviously, superb knowledge and understanding of what it means to operate a top race team. Yeah, I think they've kind of nailed it with their setup. Things seem to be moving in a positive direction, made some good hires. Yeah, it bodes well. All of a sudden, when Seidel got dropped and Bonotto was brought in, and it felt like, oh my God, this is a bit of a knee jerk in it. We're only a year and a half out of Audi fully taking over. for 26, and you've had this big change. But so far, and obviously Binotto was a big part of the Ferrari engine program back in the day, back in the Schumacher days. And again, Wheatley knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing, and their pit stops have tightened right up. Like the impact has been big. So it's so nice to see this team not be just absolute trash, or just not even just just absolute mediocrity, just non-existent. Like it's nice. It's a shame about the sponsor, but it's Sauber. We're calling it Sauber, and it'll be Audi next year, and all will be right in the world. Because I love an Audi. I'm a Quattro fan. You know, BTCC, Bielsa in the Audi S6, S4, the silver with the red rings on the prime BTCC. I tell you, prime BTCC. Tommo, stay hydrated with Bortoletto. You know what? I'm actually parched because I've not drunk any water. I haven't drunk a bottle of water. I'll give you that one for free because you've stayed this long. British man says bottle of water. So, well, but we are almost, in fact, we are pretty much done now, aren't we? We are pretty much done. Yeah, that was fun. You talked about everyone. Any other things, live chat, quick, before we wrap this almost 2 hour? How have I spoken for almost 2 hours? How do I do this? Deadest race ever. Longest live stream ever. Who's going to watch this? What you need to, what are you doing? Why are you watching? Why would you put yourself through this? What is wrong? Please stay. Please stay. Sprints 26. I did see that was leaked, wasn't it, Helita? I did see the list. Spa's not on it, which is great. Singapore's on it, isn't it? Which is interesting. Yeah, it's there's no Austria on it. So that's what I'm most disappointed about. Minton. Should I go get Minton? Right. I'll go get Minton, and I'll just give you a little... hang on. I'll try and be quick, but I've got a bad ankle, so I won't be that quick, okay? But I'll just... Right, 3, 2, 1, go. Enjoying this podcast, please give it a good rating. 5 stars would be lovely. A comment, engage however you can. It helps get the CHINWAG out to the world. Here he is. You've just had a pink screen. Sorry about that. But I suppose it's better than just seeing the background without anyone in it. Here he is. Bosh. Long stream of a dodgy leg. Much respect. Thank you, Jinky. I appreciate that. Here he is. Sleepy boy. He's been kit most of the day. Because he had a busy day yesterday. So, the FIA clangers. Absolutely, OG, man. Absolutely. How am I still talking? I know, Han. I know. How am I still talking? How do I find a way to waffle so much? It's honestly impressive. 26 sprints. China, Miami, Canada, Silverstone, Netherlands, Singapore. Yeah, Silverstone will be all right. No Brazil, no Austria. No Austria. That's the one I'm gutted about. No Austria. Yeah, why no wet race? Because the FIA didn't want to let the race go. The rule makers decided that the race couldn't even start, be a standing start, which was a shame as well. Kind of annoying, but again, I get it. I get the resistance, but there's a reason we watch for this special treat at the very end of the stream. Right, I'm actually going to wrap this now because I've got a really sore throat. So thank you all for joining. I really do appreciate you taking the time, taking almost 2 hours of your time to watch me waffle on about the worst Grand Prix in absolutely ages. So thank you. I do appreciate it. Please drop a like on the stream. Comment as well. If you're here in the live chat, don't forget to actually put a comment under the live stream because it all helps. It's all engagement. And that helps me and helps me feed this one. Minton Fund. So, yes. Bones, Algiz, Yandir, Dawood, Jaden, Lucagno. If I could pick 6 tracks to host sprint races, they would all be Austria. 6 sprints at Austria in a row. That's what I'd do. The sprint really enriched my weekend at the track last year. Don't get the hate for sprints. Timo, I completely agree. When you're there, when you go, you get way more value from a sprint ticket. Completely agree. I understand the criticisms people have, but when you are there live in the flesh, you do get more value. Couldn't agree more. Leonardo, Zanny, Jay, Pascal, Suyan, Gina, Daniel Metcalf, Cody, PP, Formula Info, Theo, Lolly, Adonis, Martin, Trevor, and the rest of you. That's a wrap. Pleasure as always. My name's Tom. Thanks again. Have a good one.